Great, thanks a lot, Joseph. Yeah, so I think over the last 18 months, I came to Clorox just over 18 months ago, and if you if you go on our corporate site, you can see some of the 2020 vision that we have, and one of the core initiatives in there is really about getting more personalized, more automated, and not just, I think, in the marketing space, but how do we think about that from marketing through sales and our R&D process. But I think we knew that marketing, it's a lot easier to personalize content and experiences.
Muted.
Really been not ship eaches to individuals, but to ship thousands of crates of bleach and Hidden Valley Ranch and Brita pitchers to places like Walmart. So it's definitely been a journey. So my plan is to sort of talk a little bit about what does the new normal look like, the personalization journey that we've been on, some of the test and learns, the pilots, and you'll sort of see the journey frameworks that I've been working with, some of the capability mapping that's helping us think about how do we get from sort of the place that we've been to where we're going, and then briefly talk a little bit about some of the things that I think were surprises, things that as we move forward really came up as work that's foundational to us getting to sort of that nirvana that we want to get to. And just a little bit of humor here with sort of looking at wearables and high personalization and what does it really mean to consumers as they start to move forward, and how do we also think in this journey about the people's privacy and just being respectful to the sort of people's identity and what they want, how they want to be engaged with, and what does a good experience look like. So so again, I think this is just a picture that everybody is probably aware of, that the consumer's changed and we're dealing with a lot of fragmentation and a new consumer that wants to be engaged sort of all the time, but is getting a constant barrage of noise. And so I think part of the journey is how do we turn all this noise, all the different channels in which we can engage with consumers into more of a signal that drives engagement and return on investment. So I'm just going to dive into some of the journey that we've been on and in this framework that I've been working off of. So for those that don't know, Clorox is not just a bleach company. It started as a bleach company, but is, like most CPGs, pretty diversified. So Kingsford, Brita, Hidden Valley, Burt's Bees are some big brands that we've acquired, and those are 4 of probably 10 major brands that we currently have. KC Masterpiece. So this cube is a picture of, I think, the journey that we're on and trying to figure out how far can we take this. What does it look like to move through the spaces, and where are the places that it just doesn't make sense for us to go. So historically, Clorox and most CPGs, and I think most companies, depending on how far you go back, lived in a very manual mass marketing space, right? We had TV, and we took what we were doing with TV and sort of put up websites, sent out emails, but still everything was one message, and was not personalized, and it was difficult to do. And now so in the last year we've moved, I would say a year ago, into this, like, what does it look like to personalize and do test and learn. So this was really the first step in our journey. So one of the things that we did with Kingsford was we were doing some work with the Weather Channel and really thinking about what is grilling, what's the right weather, what does it mean like to do grilling, and when do you get out and do that? And it's very contextual and it's very weather related. So, but when you think about what's good weather, for people like me who have lived in places from Los Angeles to the Bay Area all the way into spending 10 years in Wisconsin, you realize that in a place like Wisconsin and Minnesota, winter is half the year. And after you've spent December, January, February, March in blistering cold weather, when the sun comes out and it's 45 degrees in late March, you are going to get out and barbecue. Unlike in Los Angeles, where if it's 60 degrees, folks are wearing parkas and are not going outside. So what we were able to do with the Weather Channel was they were actually able to give us not just good weather, but contextually good grilling weather. And so we put up banner ads. We were able to create banner ads on the fly with the weekend forecast of the weather. So it could say, yeah, it's going to be 45 and sunny in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and say, hey, it's good grilling weather. Get out. Get off your gas and grill. So we found that was extremely positive for us. I think when we think about these being test and learns, one of the learnings that we got was, okay, well, this is great. This is working for media. Maybe we should be doing this for the website. So then it was going back to weather.com, them giving us yet another data feed that we integrated into the website, and then saw some good behavior, personalization, more engagement there as well, and thought, oh, well, we should do this for email as well. And yet again, going back to weather.com and getting yet a third data feed from them. And so I think what the learning here is doing test and learns to show the value of this, to show the organization that this is working is great, but you need a more enterprise approach to this so that we can think, how do I get one data feed into sort of this data architecture and allow multiple brands to use this, because weather can impact the use of Brita, right? It's really hot. People are drinking more, so how do I send them messages? The flu sort of aligns with a lot of cold weather, and so getting out, Clorox disinfectant wipes. So that, I think that was one of the key learnings. So we also did some work with Hidden Valley as part of our test and learns a year ago, where we took search data. So you have somebody searching for chicken recipes with ranch dressing, and then later, what we were able to do was actually personalize experiences. So as people were going onto sites, showing them creative where the banner ad actually has chicken in it versus maybe pasta, depending on previous or historical purchase or historical search behavior. And again, we saw a significant increase in engagement. So, with test and learn results, what we saw with these two campaigns, 30% of impressions would have been wasted, and a 70+% engagement with the Kingsford, and then ROI with the banner ads for Hidden Valley. And we used dynamic creative here, so we were able to, leverage some of the technology to create different images that were dynamically put together and displayed in real time to consumers. So the test and learn space was good, but we knew that to really get where we wanted to go, that wasn't going to scale. So we needed to start thinking about how do we move from this sort of mass to targeted single channel space up into more automated space. And on the journey, as we went into this pilot phase, was also how do we start to move into a more omni-channel experience, which is really, I think, the long-term goal, to move from the sort of working in one channel at a time. So the phase we're in right now is sort of this pilot phase, moving into targeted, automated, and moving from single to a much more omni-channel experience. So in the process of that, we moved into putting a DMP in place. So we've now added automation to our media. We're ingesting. So we've taken a couple of brands and are piloting the sort of this deeper experience with taking first-party data from our CRM system in doing onboarding, matching that into the DMP, which anonymizes it because we don't want personally identifiable data in the DMP, and then being able to run lookalike modeling. So there's a third party that pulls the data out, so we can take our Brita advocates from our CRM program. These are people that we know are highly engaged with our brand. Ingest 500,000 of those folks, you get about a 60% match rate as you ingest this into the DMP. And then a third party, so we're working with a company called Datacratic, that takes that data, then looks for what are the characteristics, what are the data points, the metadata about these specific consumers that are most alike. And then we push that. They actually go look at all the third-party data coming from the data marketplace that we're working with BlueKai, Oracle, in their data cloud, and then they're able to give us, from the, let's say, 30,000 folks that got ingested, and we're able to match 5 million people that we can go then market to. And what we've seen with Brita is a significant increase in engagement and actually return on investment through doing lookalike modeling. And also, we're able to be, with the targeting, we're able to lower our costs because we have a lot less wasted impressions. With the pilots, we also wanted to, this idea of omni-channel was, can we integrate these same segments and start to do personalization across the website? So if you go to Brita, thebrita.com, if we don't know anything about you, you get sort of this generic, picture of, hey, find the right Brita for you. We're assuming that you're not currently an owner. But if we know you're an owner, because we're getting that either from the CRM or we're seeing behaviors coming from the DMP, what we've actually been able to do is take our DMP audiences, push that into Optimizely, and then Optimizely actually is able to personalize the web experience. So someone else that we know is actually an owner of a picture may be getting more of a filter reminder type of message on the home screen. Some of the other things that we were able to do with the DMP, we've been targeting some segments around, is it more around the taste? So we've been going specifically at like coffee and tea enthusiasts who are spending a lot of money on high-end coffee and want to make sure they're putting good, clean, tasty water into that process. And so we've seen lift in that versus other folks that may be focused more on the health benefits of getting, impurities And so we're pushing that and getting putting different experiences in front of consumers. And I think some of the way we've been thinking about this is a lot of the media sort of makes a promise of, this is a value proposition for you. But historically, we would then, if someone were to click through, they'd go to the website and get this sort of generic experience. And so the idea here is, how do we start to move to a more multi-channel, omni-channel experience? So I'm going to jump into sort of how are we thinking about these capabilities, and then how are we thinking about building out the architecture and the technology landscape to move from this mass marketing single channel space to the more targeted. And I think that what we've seen is we've sort of got these three key pillars that we think of as sort of an ecosystem. So we need to be able to identify consumers. So if we're talking about how do I get the right message to the right person at the right time on the right device at the right, all those contextual pieces, first we need to get a much clearer view or 360 view of that consumer. Then we need to be able to engage with that consumer with a more personalized experience and a more automated, orchestrated experience across channels. And then we need to be able to measure, get insights. And so, and it's an ecosystem. So this just flows round and round. And so as we get smarter and the data comes in, we should be able to create better audiences and then optimize the engagement and then measure again and sort of continue to move in this direction. So if we look at the way we've broken out the sort of journey we're on in the identify space, we've got consumer data management. And again, we think of these as capabilities because it's not just about the technology, it's about the people, the skill sets, the org model, the processes, and then the technology. And I think a lot of times it's easy to get focused on the technology landscape and think, oh, well, if we build the technology, if we build this and architect it correctly, this will work. And I think that's one of the key learnings that we're finding along the journey, is that org structure in marketing and IT needs to be transformed, processes need to be transformed, and we've got definite skill gaps. So consumer data management, where do we put the data? How do we govern data? How do we get good quality of data? So we're putting in Hadoop systems. We've got the DMP, CRM, but then some of what that does is the foundation for audience management. So we need to be able to create segments, think about how do we optimize those audiences. And then that gets us to this omni-channel personalized marketing. So consumer experience management, and then omni-channel, so personalization and automation, and then we get over into consumer data and analytics, so the insights management, measurement, and then data modeling and data science. And just to simplify that, it's really data management, targeting, personalization, cross-channel automation, and the insights measure and data science. So I think everybody at this point has seen this slide with 1,800 logos, and I think the question is from a marketing technology perspective, if that's the journey we're on, then sort of where do you start? How do you start to think about building out the platform? So from a more technical perspective, we kind of simplify this into a data layer, an insights layer, experience, and then this integration layer. And so what we did was we took the marketing technology landscape, and if you remove all of those logos, you get sort of this picture. And then if you make strategic choices about what are the things that matter to your company and your sort of first probably phase of the journey, you can start to map these, and these are color-coded back to the identify, engage, and measure and integration layers. So we then overlaid those things into the architecture, and you start to get sort of this high-level sort of reference architecture as to where to begin. And you can see, for us, we have a lot of these pieces. The issue is a lot of them aren't integrated. So we've had CRM. We're now doing, in the pilots that we're doing, onboarding and matching with data logics. We've got Blue Kai Oracle with the DMP, which gives us basically those two layers right now. We've got data logics was acquired by Oracle as well. Then thinking about sort of that marketing data, so we've got the data marketplace that Oracle has with sort of the acquisition of their data, well, what they're now calling their data cloud, and then we've put Hadoop in as a place to export all of this data and start getting insights and run analytics. And then we've got we think about sort of measurement and the insights. We've got social listening, natural language processing, data visualization tools, SAS and R modeling tools, marketing analytics, and then when we look at the engage layer, we got web content management, personalization, and optimization. So we're currently using WordPress as our CMS. We've put Optimizely in place to do personalization and optimization of that experience. Campaign management, I think, is still somewhat immature in our world. E-commerce, we've got very little e-commerce. If we think about the CPG space, Burt's Bees is really the only e-commerce platform that we currently own. We do use Amazon and more e-tailers to put some of our brands, and we're definitely seeing a lift there, which is great, and we get some good insights. But again, a lot of this is just not integrated into one seamless platform. So, when we look at sort of where we're at today from a platform perspective, this is sort of the mess that we have, right? We sort of had all the layers at the top, so we have multiple channels, but they're all behaving very much in silos. So media, email, web and mobile, social. We've got some digital asset management platform, but it's inconsistently used. We've got a decisioning layer. If we think about how do we start to personalize these experiences and automate them, again, they're still very single channel, so we can leverage DSPs to drive bidding and trade desk and personalized media, but that channel sort of works on its own, and email, web isn't really that informed by whether or not somebody saw a banner ad, clicked on a banner ad. We've got, so you see, we've got content personalization for web, some social listening that may inform some of the social engagement that we go on. But again, a lot of this is still happening semi-automated or still somewhat, manual. And, but the DMP has now definitely moved us into the ability to create audiences. And this, again, you see this sort of CRM to data matching to modeling, and what you'll see on here as well is this modeling piece is put into a couple places, because some of it we're doing externally through the DMP, but also as we think about how do we build those lookalike modeling and other sort of engagement modeling capabilities in-house. But I think this is really more of the long-term vision of where we're trying to get. So a lot of data and integration, insights layer, machine learning, decisioning layer sort of at the bottom. You see in the middle sort of this first-party, third-party, data movement and audience building. I think we're definitely looking at, from a from a data perspective, and I'll talk a little bit about sort of our data strategy, but when you think about the third-party data that's coming in from the data marketplace, but also thinking about opportunities to use second-party data. So we're doing some pilots with Target to share data with them and have them actually create more of an omni-channel as people move from into that sort of shopper space and they move into the store or they're on e-commerce. How can we share data with our retailers to help personalize that experience and keep that journey consistent? But I think one of the things that the main piece here that we start to see is instead of there being this decisioning layer that's per channel, how do we start to get to a marketing automation layer, omni-channel orchestration layer, and how can we inform that layer with a more of a machine learning decisioning layer that is highly informed by all of this data? And so I think that this is more of the probably 3-year roadmap of how do we get to a platform where in the future, as brands start to think about a new consumer experience layer that they want to add, new social platforms, new mobile spaces, better integration to retailer e-commerce, how can we just plug and play that right into a system where the insights automatically are generated, it fits right into the marketing automation layer, and we're not sort of doing these one-offs. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the learnings that we've got. So as we jumped into this with the DMP, we went within 3 months into basically moving every one of our brands into the DMP. And we're doing that at different levels. So we've got these deep pilots that we're doing with Brita and Hidden Valley where we're trying to think about it more omni-channel, taking first-party data, doing the matching, doing lookalike modeling, trying to do much deeper, highly targeted, and highly informed audiences, and then trying to personalize that across channels. So we're going to add email this year as well. So we'll have media, we'll have the web channel personalized, email starting to get more personalized based on those audiences, and then social is sort of on the roadmap but may flow into next year. But I think we quickly learned that, wow, there's a lot of data and we need to have a more strategic approach to selecting data, making strategic choices about where to focus on data, what data is going to matter the most, how do we QA this data, how do we govern data. And so, I think this is an interesting slide because if we think about data as being unique versus how does it scale to help us get reach, the DMP out of the box really helps us get third-party data, but that data is and it scales because there's, it's got pretty much 95% of the world that's online shows up, but it's not unique. Every one of our competitors can get the same data from Datalogix, Axiom, pick a DMP vendor. And then we've got our first-party data from our, the CRM, but, and it's highly unique. This is people that have opted in to have conversations, to have a relationship with Clorox, but this doesn't scale quickly. So I think what gets interesting are these two pieces that sit in the middle around modeling, being able to build lookalikes, and second-party data, being able to work more closely with our retailers. And so I think that, in this quote about strategy is about making choices, trade-offs, it's about deliberately choosing to be different. It's about choosing things that you're not going to do. And so, I think for us, and I think everybody's going to have to make their own choices here, but I think for us, we've taken this third-party data approach to, yes, we need to do this. Yes, we need to get more focused, and that's why we've moved sort of all of our brands very quickly into at least engaging with the DMP, getting, not wasting impressions and trying to test more micro targets with the DMP. But at the same time, I think we know that's just sort of, you have to get in the game and do that. But it's not a place that you're going to invest lots of time and see lots of differentiation. So I think the strategic choice is to think about, how do you grow your first-party data? And that may mean that you want, for us, because we don't have a lot of folks logging in, we don't have people buying online from us because we're selling through retailers. It's like, how do we build more engaging experiences? How do we get consumers to give us more data? So whether that means investing in more like mobile apps, ways to build those relationships, build services around our brands that are more lifestyle focused. I think those are opportunities, whether it's engaging with exercise apps and tying that to Brita, with Apple's health platform. I think those are places that we need to engage. And the strategic move with that is that as our first-party data grows and we get much richer first-party data, it then enhances our lookalike modeling, which makes third-party data better. And it also gives us something to go to our retailers with and sort of talk to them about, how can we be this sort of digital category captain, that they will, not only will we be sharing our data with them, but it will be more of a, hey, if you show us your data, we'll show us ours. And so I think it gives us more leverage with the retailers as they're trying to get more personalized, and helps us put our brand sort of at a premium with the retailers. So I think that is definitely one of the key learnings. And one of the key pieces with this as well, when we think about the capabilities, is adding data science capabilities, adding folks that have much deeper consumer data experience. So we've recently brought in data science folks both in the marketing space and in IT. We most recently hired someone that's actually spent the last 5 years working at a DMP that has deep, not only technical but business acumen around the DMP and consumer data space. And I think some of the gaps are probably still about, how do we put more governance, how do we put better data quality and QAing and integration layers into this data platform. Hadoop expertise, big data expertise, I think are all things that we're really thinking about. The other place that I think for some folks, especially I think some companies that are more in the B2B space or are able to sell direct to consumers, probably have been doing consumer experience mapping and sort of brand journeys. But for a company that spent most of the last 100 years doing mass marketing, I think this was surprisingly the place that we really needed to get the brand managers sort of a new paradigm. Because as we started out on the technology side saying, okay, if we're going to build this out, we need to know, like, if there's 1,800 vendors, where do we start? Where do we make strategic decisions about investing in technology, investing in what data to start with? And the conversation for us started out with, well, can you give us some end-to-end sort of consumer experiences that you want to create, and then we can go out and sort of build, through incubators, build out, test and learns, make sure we're getting the right data, building, whether that means, engaging with more metadata around recipes for Hidden Valley, if it means building mobile apps to get more first-party data, all of those things were sort of foundational to moving forward, and we realized that there was sort of just a mental model gap with a lot of the brand folks. And so my team actually went on the journey of building out this framework and sitting down with brand managers and digital planners and saying, rather than a mindset that's like, how do I sell one more bottle of bleach or one more bottle of Hidden Valley Ranch, it's how do we build a relationship with consumers that's more of a lifetime value, loyalty play, and building relationships, not just to the product, but to the brand overall. And so through that work, we've moved into this type of sort of consumer experience architecture and brand journeys that really about having a very much a broader sort of omni-channel brand strategy. And so I don't want to walk through this whole journey, but I think if we take a sort of this flavorful creator that was much more, historically how the brand was thinking about a consumer, it's like, what's the actual journey they're going on? And so they may have started out with their, Annie goes to her friend's house and she sees her kids eating lots of vegetables and is surprised because she's had trouble getting them to do that, and realizes that her friend has got ranch dressing out. It doesn't really make a connection to that it's even Hidden Valley, but just that she needs to buy ranch, so she goes out, gets ranch, and they're not, eating it the same, and realizes that it's not just any ranch, but it's Hidden Valley ranch. And so a lot of that is very word of mouth. There's not a lot of technology involved, but as she starts to have this relationship with the brand, she may then sort of go to the website, and once she's gone to the website, she may drive. We help drive her to getting recipes that she can then leverage. So there may be very basic recipes, but once we get her to actually opt in, we now will get that sort of history of that she has seen banner ads, that she has engaged with recipes, what type of recipes is she engaging with on the site, and how do we then move her from an engagement score process to sort of low, a beginner, to moving her into this newbie space. How do we move her into thinking broader than ranch in a bottle, but dry ranch that she can cook more with, getting her into more advanced recipes. And so you start to see this like different technologies and different data sets that move Annie through these different phases to truly being an advocate of the brand. So it helps us understand what are the activities, what are the triggers to the next phase, and what are those touch points. And when you go inside of each one of these phases, there's sort of different channels, different data, different technical platforms that need to enable moving Annie through the phases. So this is really the journey we've been on, thinking about the overall strategic. What are what is the people skills? What is the org structure? What are the what are the new skills that brand managers need to have? And then how do we build out a technical platform that enables this for growth and scale and efficiency across a subset of 10 to 15 global brands?
Yeah, so Shawn, thanks a lot for doing that. Some pretty incredible stuff that you guys are doing that all seems to scream data. I mean, the foundational piece for so much of that seems to all be around the data of this. When you were thinking about the one thing that really caught my eye here in the middle of so many good things that you presented here was, the customizing the site from the DMP data. So essentially, can you walk through sort of how that works? So you're storing information that you're getting either from first party or from third party data. You're storing that within your platform, and then you're actually taking that data and feeding it to another piece of software that's then talking to your digital asset, both mobile and desktop. Can you talk through sort of how that works?
Yeah, so the DMP, so once we build audiences, so once we have a specific audience, let's say we go back to the coffee and tea enthusiasts, and we're trying to figure out, again, is this an audience that wants to engage around taste, or an audience that wants to engage around health? So some of that we're getting, we can do some lookalike modeling, but again, a lot of that was still, we don't have a ton of that data yet in our first-party data, but you're able to go out through the DMP and look at audiences and say, okay, we're going to take this audience that is tea and coffee enthusiasts, and we're going to put some sort of generic banner ads in front of them around Brita, and then very focused taste coffee messaging. And so, first we did some testing with that around the media side, just to see, are people engaging, who's engaging, is it a higher end, is it a millennial audience,
right?
And so you can get a lot of these predefined segments through the DMP, the data marketplace. So that's where you start. Then once you start to learn, okay, yes, this is something that matters, we then create custom content that can be displayed on the website around this. And then those audiences can actually be pushed. So we put Optimizely in place. There's a handful of technologies that you could go about doing this. Optimizely, Maximizer. I mean, when Maximizer is actually something we're looking at because Oracle acquired them, and we think there may be some synergies there. But again, we're trying to move really quick in a test and learn space with a couple of brands. So Optimizely actually has a plugin right into Blue Kai, which was one of the reasons we picked it. And so we're actually able to push those audiences over to Optimizely, and then put specific content that overwrites the page. So the way this technology works is someone lands on the web page. We've got information. We may know that they came from the banner ad, or we at least know that they saw a banner ad around taste, and that may be what's driving them to the site. And so rather than show them the generic homepage, we actually, there's, for anybody that doesn't understand how this works, I mean, you put JavaScript tags on the website where you want to be able to customize content. As the page is loading, there's a call to Optimizely. Do we know something about this consumer? Yes, we know they're a taste, profile. So override the homepage with that content.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, is that something that you've done just sort of on a couple of selected, I know you talked about how you're starting to move more and more of your brands into the DMP and stuff. The front-facing assets that get that sort of personalization, is there a rollout strategy for how you're going to start to leverage sort of all this data that you've got and then pick and choose which asset you're going to do the customization, or is it a blanket thing? What's sort of the general idea that you can share?
Yeah, so I think our approach is to think about, because there's a scale issue here. And as we think about how do we want to automate and personalize content across channels, we've got some technical platforms that we need to think about, right? So when we think about tagging content, creating a lot more content, not only content in the CMS, but tagging content and building taxonomies around digital assets, so images and video. We're still on a maturity curve there, and thinking about where the big technology investments and integration place, decisions that we need to make. So we're trying to keep this focused on a couple of brands and go really deep in those couple of brands over the next 6 to 9 months, and then using those, so some of this are, they're very specific, like we're getting brand input, brand initiatives, but we're also looking at some of this from like test and learns that are really focused on just testing the technology that we currently have and understanding where the gaps are. And then as we do this work, it also brings to light, oh wow, we need to be able to create content a lot faster. We need to be, so it's also informing the people and process side of things. And so the idea is that I think really if we think about this fiscal year, a lot of it's about discovery, and then next year will really be around better design, and then and starting to scale this out into more brands, and then really a broad deployment probably in year 3. So so I think we're going to continue to do test and learns. We're also doing thinking about, well, should we be doing more with international? Are there differences in the international platforms that we have or portfolio? Where are they at on the maturity curve? So yeah, so I think we're definitely thinking about it as a sort of phased approach, because it won't really scale without lots of bodies, and getting lots of bodies can be expensive.
Sure. Yeah. No, I hear you. What's the and this could be either technical or on the business process side, but what was the biggest challenge that your teams faced when you were going through this sort of bringing the DMP in, and then getting the data in, and then creating these personalized experiences for known and unknown users? What was the biggest challenge you guys had?
I think that what we're seeing, because I think we moved really quickly in the media space, and then and getting I mean, within 3 months we put every one of our brands up, and I think we just sort of using the minimal viable sort of capability in the DMP was not really that difficult. But when you start thinking about ingesting first-party data into the platform, I think there was quite a few hiccups in okay, how do we get that data out and then over to data logics and having them imported, and there was a lot of learning in that process that and I think that was the whole point. But it's definitely something that, and then that whole conversation that I was speaking about around having a data strategy, thinking about data governance. So one of the examples I can give you is one of the things that a couple of things that we were looking at from the sort of hypothesis that we wanted to test with Brita was being able to look at the MOAT score. So MOAT, for those people that don't know, is a tool that will give you feedback on viewability. So did somebody actually see your banner ad or your video? Did they hover on it? So one of the reasons you use that is so that you go back and say, I'm not paying for impressions that were below the fold that no one saw.
Right.
But they've got a very sort of black box algorithm. And what we were able to do with Brita was go back in time and say, can we see a correlation between sales and some other something that we can measure more quickly, because sales is something that it takes us a long time to get data on. So what we're calling early performance indicators, we found that there was a great correlation between a really high MOAT score and actual purchase. So we wanted to be able to pull the MOAT score into the DMP. So we built a custom integration into that. But some of what we found after running this for 3 months was that it's really hard. The level in which the MOAT score data is coming in and being able to match that to specific individuals, it doesn't quite match. And so though we can get some of that from insights and measurement as it comes out, as we pull the data out of the DMP into Hadoop, the trust in that data is still kind of low.
Right, right.
And so what we've had to do is go back. Now, I mean, there's 3 or 4 new CPG companies that are, I think sort of getting close to signing with BlueKai, and they're all asking for this Moat integration. So I think Moat and BlueKai are solving that problem, and will, but some of these things, when you go in early and you're building the integrations yourself, again, I think you just have to be prepared that there's going to be a lot of learning, and that that something not working isn't a fail. It's just it is truly learning. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, the pieces that you talked about there with the integrations with the DMP, I mean, it's clear to me, especially when I was listening to you talk about the stuff that you're doing with the look-alike, the look-similar stuff, where you're being able to basically extrapolate to a much broader, throw a much wider net, right, across a much larger audience than you are with that data that comes across. Seems to me like getting a DMP would be useful and valuable regardless of which vertical it is, right? There's no question that there's a couple of companies that have already done this. Retail is doing it very heavily, but maybe some of the non-traditional sort of data management companies that store a lot of internal data can actually take that, put that into a DMP platform, and then start leveraging it in the same way that you guys are using. And a couple ideas come through my head, but I'm thinking that that process that you've gone through, you can then basically leverage that to do a whole bunch of different things, right? And then take that into email and mobile and desktop, and even your call centers, probably you can take that into your call center system. So that seems to make a lot of sense. Can you share anything about the process you went through? I know this is a relatively new sort of technology that you've got, the process that you went through, at least in broad strokes, to bring the DMP platform in. I mean, was that completely sort of an IT initiative? Was it sort of a co-business IT initiative? How did that all play out, and how did you end up with whom you ended up with?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the RFP process probably took longer than getting the tool up. So,
right.
We started out. There's a lot. I mean, it was a very immature space, especially a year and a half ago. And I think you have to strategically think about what technology, what are you really looking for in a DMP, because some of them really started out as sort of pure play DMPs, or a lot of these companies like BlueKai really started out as a data marketplace, and then realized like, oh, we a lot of folks would like to have more of their own data and be able to do this type of matching, and built a platform. You had a lot of other DSPs that were more on the display side or demand side, realize, oh, well, there's a huge opportunity here. So weeding through all of that, I mean, we started with like 13 brands. This was an IT, co-lead MarTech team, along with insights folks, CRM teams. I mean, because we really wanted to think broader, not just media. I mean, if you want to go just media and DMP, media math and data, Turn, we're probably or Rocket Fuel were some of the key players. But if you wanted to think broader and you wanted to think about how is this going to be omni-channel, then you had to dig a lot deeper and find those folks that are doing some of that. So I think that was probably the most, the hardest part, especially getting everybody on board with something that was very future focused.
Yeah.
I think, once you get into the bringing this up, there's very little IT support. I mean, most of it, the DMP vendors, I mean, it's a SaaS solution, so the taxonomy, integration points, that's probably the bigger process, is like, what data do you want in there? You're building out the taxonomy in the DMP so that you know, like, what is it you want to be able to measure, what data points are, tagging everything. So you go through this process of tagging your website. You can sort of have a high-level tag that just sort of fires on every page, or you can have specific events or like win points, conversion points that you want to tag, and then what data do you want to send when that happens. So, having a tagging expert and then having a taxonomy expert is definitely part of the play. Though, I mean, most of the vendors will help you with both of those things. And then you're tagging your media, so you're working with your agencies to tag media, tagging emails. So there's, that's sort of the process, is really getting the tagging, bringing all of the different disparate channels together and saying what do we want to measure, and building out that taxonomy. And then are there custom integration points that you want? Because we had the Moat integration. We also integrated RevTrax for couponing, and those were two vendors that Oracle or the Blue Kai folks didn't already have built into their app marketplace. So, then it's really more getting. I mean, you have to figure out too. Do you want your agency to run this for you,
right,
or are you going to bring people in house to run it yourself, or some sort of hybrid?
And that's sort of my last question to you, was around exactly that. I've tried to touch on the skill set issue across all the different presenters today. So what did you guys end up doing? Was it a hybrid between the two? Did you rely more on the vendor, or did you just have more of the internal folks working on it?
So yeah, I mean, once it's up and running, what we've done is we've got, I think, from a media activation layer, it's very much our digital agency of record is running. They've built a trading desk for us. They're managing the audiences and running a lot of that. When it gets to the pushing audiences and personalizing content to the website, we're doing a lot more of that in-house, because we have an in-house agency, that, basically internal agency that manages all of our web experience.
Right.
And and then on the insight side, as we pull the data out of the DMP into Hadoop and are doing measurement analytics, that we're also doing very much in-house. So then that is probably the place where IT, business intelligence, and we've added an entire team that's just focused on these pilots to, what we're calling sense and respond marketing for insights, measurement, and data science. So, so we've added probably 7 new headcount internally.
Oh, wow.
To drive, and that's just on the marketing side. And then, I've brought in an architect, an enterprise architect for MarTech. I just brought in like a MarTech consumer data and analytics expert. I think I mentioned this before. I mean, he spent the last 5 years actually working at a DMP.
Yeah.
So, so we're definitely having to build out a lot of this. And then I think the other move, I mean, marketing is looking at, I think, a very clear need for reorg and moving away from this much, it's like things are very siloed right now. You have brand in sort of one corner, and then Marcom that's focused on digital media separate, global insights is separate, and realizing we need more of a studio model where you've got sort of a studio lead that's able to drive a much more, the team is actually taking input and work requests from the brand, and you've got an insights person in that brand studio, and they're co-located, right? So you have insights, a media person, a creative person, a content editor, and a technical person, all sitting on one team.
Yeah.
Which is just a huge shift, right? So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like that you guys are definitely taking the right steps to do it. But like you and I have talked about before, this is definitely a journey, and not just for you guys, but for so many companies. And I think the point is really to get on that road and start moving on that road, and then you just get better at it as time goes on. So that seems to be where you guys are headed, and you're doing some pretty cool stuff. So very impressive.